Which hobbies that people do screams, rich people's. In Sweden, it's tennis. Even the tennis isn't super expensive. That's where all the millionaires their kids are. Surprised this isn't higher up. Yeah, it might not be as expensive as some of the other hobbies here, but literally every wealthy person I've ever met fucking loves tennis for some reason. Flying to phone races. Was in London. Fun coming to Silverstone. Somehow my boss snags me tickets to take my client. Traffic would be bad, so we were to chopper in and out. My company sponsors BMW, so we were to be in pit trackside. I go to my client and he says he doesn't really like racing. Perhaps we could go to show jumping instead. I work for Porsche. Many clients have racetrack memberships where they garage their cars and have track days. $80, $90 initiation fee, $10 annual fee for some membership. On my road trip 2 years ago, I visited Indy 500 track in Indianapolis. This coincided with some sort of Porsche track day, and my tour guide told me that all members who participated that day had to have a Porsche 911 and also buy another 911 that would be used in the event Yeah, rich is an understatement. Track memberships are just race-car country clubs, really. But racing is done on all budgets. My neighbor is a yachtsman who makes a middle-class living racing rich people's yachts. So, I would say hiring people to indulge your hobbies is about as 1% as one can get. Sounds like an interesting job. He gets to spend far more time yachting than the actual owner. Hello, it is me, a yachtsman looking for work. There's YouTube tutorials on yachtsmanning, right? Polo. I worked at one of the largest polo clubs in America and had all sorts of celebs and former presidents go there. Made great money because how some of these people tip is insane. Not usually the celebs, but the moderately rich people always have a 20. When I learned you need to have a whole trailer full of horses for a single player to use for one match, it blew my mind how expensive it would be to have as a hobby. Many matches need 4 or 5 horses per rider per game. A bare minimum is 2, but as many as 8. There's 8 players per game, 4 riders per team. So you're looking at up to 64 horses to play. Throw in the ancillary resources for just the horses. Vets, stable boys, groundkeepers. Yeah, it's a rich person sport. I once worked a temp job at a polo match, and yeah, it was literally sponsored by a champagne brand. No one in the crowd or on the horses looked within 10 tax brackets of me. Any sport involving horses, really. Summering. Only rich people will ask another person where they summer. Where do you summer? In my bedroom. Unless you have grandparents in a small town and your parents send you there for the summer. A friend of ours got a wildly expensive cappuccino machine from his wife for Christmas. She didn't think there was room for it in their huge gourmet kitchen, so they had a whole coffee station with cabinets and drawers, and a built-in mini-fridge and marble countertops, installed in the adjoining breakfast area. This was all because they got tired of driving to Starbucks twice a day. Oh, and they sent us home with an Xbox One the other night because they just bought whatever the new one is. Yes, and had no use for it. Lol, nicest people, just wildly wealthy. I had a rich boyfriend who didn't realize it wasn't normal to throw away stuff you pre-ordered just because it didn't live up to expectations. He had a 4-day-old Xbox One he was going to throw away because he wanted the sphere away, because he wanted the sphere more. Guess who got a free Xbox One? Do they need more friends? The fastest way to become a millionaire is to become a billionaire and go racing. I've heard the fastest way was to buy an airline. We had a meet and greet with a new executive at my company, and she told us one of her hobbies is investing in real estate. The frustrating thing about having money makes money is that if you have the money to do this, it's a great financial decision. For a small-scale example, I dated a woman in college who had a rather wealthy mother. Instead of renting a place to live for her daughter, she just bought an apartment close to campus and then sold it when my ex graduated. Because the rent she charged my ex's roommate covered both upkeep and the mortgage, she not only broke even, but probably turned a profit, while the rest of us were in the negative for paying rent, even though we didn't have as much money. If I had the money to do that, I'd invest in real estate as a hobby too. Bartender here. 2 very cute girls from out of town sat at my bar. Equally cute guy walks in, immediately buys them drinks. His opener was "So, how often do you girls boat?" They were from fucking Philly Lop. When he said that I couldn't not smirk at it, he also tipped me like $130 for 3 Jameson Cokies. We only motorboat when we're really drunk. Yeah, boating is expensive as fuck. Wouldn't call it a rich hobby down here in Fee, though. You'll see plenty of dilapidated houses with a nice fishing boat out front. He wants to take them boating, because of the implication. My granddad belonged in a country club. My extremely affluent uncle enjoys building and flying his own aircraft as a hobby. There appear to be kits, but he has also acquired and fixed small 2-seater planes that have crashed. Friend of a friend is stupid rich, emphasis on stupid. Guy famously decided to learn to fly one day, so he bought a new plane, and not a cheap one. Apparently he got it into his head that the plane would be better with a new wiring system, so he had it rewired to the tune of an extra 60 grand or more. Then he started the process to get his pilot's license, and found out that he's colorblind, I think it was, so he just gave up the idea and sold the plane at a huge loss. Didn't blink an eye. Home-built kit planes aren't that expensive, especially airplane. Wise. It's probably on par with boating, not like yachts. And talking about having a motorized boat you take out to the lake and drive around on the weekend. Not to say it's cheap, but the friends I have who are into it aren't affluent people. It's kind of on par with people who like to tinker on cars and trucks. It's more expensive than a hobby like hiking or something, but it's not really that crazy. I think people hear airplane and always envision a private Gulfstream jet and think it's all like that, but there's a wide spectrum, and kit planes are pretty much at the bottom. They're there for people who like tinkering around with things like that. The small 2-seater planes you're talking about are probably Cessna 150s or 152s. I have a friend who has one of those he got used for around $30. Not chump change by any means, but also probably a lot less than most people would think when they're thinking of airplane. Not really a hobby, but I worked for a boutique private doctor company that catered to the very rich. Membership fee $40 a year per person, not including their insurance. And these are just some of the things that are included. You have a medical team, your primary, a nurse, cardiologist, obgyn, physical therapist, nutritionist, etc. Just for you need an appointment for anything. They will work around your schedule, yearly check-up 2 years with your primary doc team at the clinic and your medical team at the clinic or your house. They craft a yearly wellness plan for you and track it monthly lab work, in-house, at the clinic or at your house. The nurse will call you within 24 hours with the results and explain them to you in great detail. You have your doctor's mobile and email address, and you can reach out to them 24/7 with questions or concerns. Are you traveling domestically or internationally or internationally or internationally or internationally? They will provide you with top-tier dose wherever you are, or have your personal doctor and nurse fly out. Are you having a medical emergency? Your doctor a nurse will meet you at the and have a private room ready for you with a specialist. If needed, don't feel like going to the door's office. They will go wherever you are insurance or billing questions. You don't worry, they will navigate that for you. Clients, celebrities, politicians, CEOs, the one. That sounds so much more actually desirable than a lot of the things we hear about rich people blowing money on. Honestly, if I had the kind of money where I could afford that, yay, I 100s would be doing that. Sure beats having to make an appointment with my GP 6 weeks in advance. Also, benzos, essentially on demand. I once had to take someone from Indiana to Mayo Clinic by ambulance. Her very important person status means we had a higher doctor and nurse with us in the truck administering benzos every 2 hours like clockwork because she got anxious from sitting backward. The only reason she went by ambulance was because she had been abusive to the air ambulance staff in the past. Equestrian sports, horticulture, and while we are at it, Sailor Moon merchandise. You got me with the Sailor Moon merchandise. Going to space. Astronomical prices. Yachts and yacht clubs. I am a member of a yacht club, go sailing regularly, and currently have just under €300 to my name. It is the exception to the rule, but it is amazing what you can do if you find the right group. High-end auctions at places like Sotheby's and Christie's. Nothing says excess wealth like paying 6 figures for an antique salt shaker to add to your already inexplicably large collection of antique salt shakers. In Germany we have a saying, if you play golf, you're too poor for horses. You buy horses if you are too poor for sailing. If you are sailing, you are probably too poor for jets and motorbikes. Historic motorsports is also a good indicator for wealth, especially phone. That's a really long saying. It's so funny to me that phone is such an indicator of wealth and gentleman's sport because being into motorsports in the user means you're blue collar. I started watching phone and picked Verstappen partially because he's from Red Bull, La Honda. I can afford a Red Bull and a Honda. Yay, owning a phone team is how you know you've made it. Own a baseball team? Yay, you're high society. Own a football team. Multi-billionaire. Own a phone team. Multi-billionaire. Own a phone team. Multi-generational wealth, where every one of your children will be billionaires. I went to my auntie's 70th birthday. She's a hobbyist pilot and long-time member of an aviation club. My partner and I were talking to one of the guys there, and he asked, "Did you guys ever get into flying?" To which we obviously replied with, he seemed genuinely surprised and then asked, "Oh, did your parents just not let you?" The obscene cost of flying, bounding, renting planes never even entered his mind. The only reason he could see for not flying planes as a child was a lack of interest. Pretty fucking mind-blowing to be age. To be fair, it's probably because he knows your aunt is a long-time pilot. If you have a family member who already owns and or has access to a plane, it can actually be fairly affordable to get your license. Now, I'm not saying it's an option if you're living paycheck to paycheck, but it's absolutely affordable if you're not interested in buying a house or buying a new car, taking vacations, etc. It is expensive, but not nearly as expensive as people think. Sailing, collecting art, watches, cars, traveling. I know you can travel on the cheap, but even doing it cheaply multiple times a year is a luxury of the rich for the most part. Not only the cost of the trip, but having the financial freedom to not work so you can travel. Sailing in 4, but I have a 1978 Sunfish and hand sew my own sail. Creating a secret cave filled with high-tech equipment. How does he keep his identity secret? Surely there are contractors that worked on the Batcave. And what about the guy who installed the red phone? And why are there so many minor celebrities sticking their heads out of windows in Gotham? Whole thing sound pretty far-fetched, if you ask me. Warhammer is basically poor person, spending 3x the money of a rich person. Himalayan mountaineering. A guy I grew up with guides on Everest and other high peaks. It's like $200 to book him as your guide on Everest. I'm sure there are expenses and stuff, but he takes like a dozen at a time. Something that probably isn't the first to people's minds, but aquariums. Good God, are aquariums all about upfront investments in time, money and space, and that still doesn't 100 safeguard things from going catastrophic, to which then the typical solution is an even more absurd dedication of time, money and space to remedy said problem. They are gorgeous and can absolutely be a source of serenity for a room. But honestly, that serenity is only going to be felt by those who didn't have to put the work, planning and money into it. I'd honestly say keeping a standard 20-gallon fish tank would be comparable to keeping a small parrot, at least in terms of effort and knowledge required, and the needs go up exponentially from there. I think you need to specify saltwater tanks. Fresh water isn't more expensive than a dog. Art collecting. If your goal is to hoard as much money as possible and get the most famous Picasso for $1 gazillion. Yeah, I don't have a lot of money. I love art and I consider myself an art collector, even if it's from thrift shops. If it's not a famous name, you can get beautiful sign prints and lithographies for like $30, or buy directly from an artist you find online and like. Having more than one Lego set. Going to Africa to hunt big game. There was a Wendover video I watched on this. Quite interesting. Till today, Tanzania sells licenses to kill rhinos, lions, etc. They use the money to preserve wildlife, sacrifice one to save many. Yacht party. With any outdoor sports like skiing, rock climbing, etc., people either seem to be rich, off, or broke off. The classic dirtbag mantra. At both ends of the income spectrum, there exists a leisure class. Yachting, collecting classic Ferraris. Tax evasion. I recently went to Loon Mountain in New Hampshire, which is pretty average skiing, and for a family of 4, our tickets cost $475 a day. That's almost $1,000 just in ticket cost for the weekend. On top of that, we spent a couple hundred on food. Luckily, we were staying with someone, otherwise we would have to pay another almost $1,000 for lodging. We're upper middle class, and we could barely afford it. I don't understand how the mountain and lift lines were so crowded. Who can afford this more than once a year, if that? Annual ski pass. $600, $1,100 depending on icon or epic used equipment. Skis, boots, bindings, poles. $500 one-time fee. Used gear. $300. Get a new helmet though, one time. So now you are a two-person, roughly for as much skiing as you want all season. Have to live in Sef, Reno Slew. Have to live in Sef, Reno Slup. Denver, Boulder, or near the mountain. Now you day trip from your house and bring a sandwich. This is how 90 of those people can go every weekend. Source: quit my job, paid above amounts, live in my van, ski every day. Hunting people. I went on a manhunt once. I just got back from Dam. I was hitchhiking through Oregon. Next thing I know, there's a bunch of cops chasing after me through the woods. I had to take them all out. It was a bloodbath. Philanthropy. Depending on where they live and how often they do it. Skiing, snowboarding. Yeah, it's pretty common for people here. But I'm in Canada with easy access to the mountains, though. It's still expensive, but it's a pretty middle-class thing to do. There's ski-rich and ski-poor. I bought the cheapest season pass option, bought all discounted gear, and mostly day. Trip from the nearby metro area, where I live in a studio apartment. Total cost for the year, including pass, $350. Gear, snowboard, boots, bindings, $550, and estimated travel cost. And estimated travel cost the rest because I'm taking a road trip this year. Is about $1,500, $2,000. I have to tighten my belt to accommodate the lifestyle, but I and many other working class folks rip year after year. Some of the lift conversations I've had, however, have been with folks who take 2-3 week-long destination trips each year. A few people even bounce between the hemispheres to chase snow. Now that requires money. Rich people living in the UK will ask you, do you ski, very casually, as if they're asking if you read books or watch TV. Very big giveaway about their background and upbringing.